Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Sigma Swag Podcast, and we are really, really excited about this episode. What's our topic for today?
Today we're going to be talking about necessary violence. We're going to smash...
Violence, baby!
You can see how excited Joe is to be talking about this. Violence is probably one of his top 3 most important things next to air. It goes like food, water, oxygen, violence. For Joe.
No. It probably comes violence first, and then air, and then food.
No, you can't have violence without air.
Yes,
you need air to be violent.
Yes, you can.
For your voice. So today we're going to be talking about violence and why we're going to call this episode actually necessary violence, because violence has always existed ever since humans have existed. Violence will and has always been something that has to be, because humans... We're naturally fallen and sinful, and we're not perfect. We don't live in the Garden of Eden anymore, so violence will always be a thing. And actually, as long as there's the oppositions of good and evil, it's
there will
necessary.
Always be violence.
Exactly. So violence has existed since the olden days. What's one of the first examples of violence that we have documented?
On Earth, Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel. So Cain killed Abel. He was violent. He got pissed off. He was jealous, and so he killed his brother.
That was terrible. I could never kill you.
You're not jealous of me, right?
You're not jealous of me?
No.
Okay,
no.
good.
We're good. All right. I was getting
on camera.
I was getting nervous. So what's another maybe non-jealous related example of violence that you can think of that maybe everybody has probably heard of?
Like in old times, like David and Goliath.
Perfect example. So basically, some big ugly giant with 4 testicles and no dick challenges the king of Israel, and he wants to fight somebody.
He wants to enslave the Israelites. And he ended up getting his butt whooped.
He got all 4 of his testicles inverted.
Right up his
He has a 4-point entry vagina and a big hole in his head, so 5 vaginas.
Maybe that's where they got the term skull. You know what I mean?
Skull what?
Never mind. I'm not going to say that on camera.
If you say it, I'll go boop just in time.
You'll beep it out.
This is PG rated, by the way, because we have a lot of friends and family watching this. So this is
mostly people. Well,
I don't even know who watches it, but I like it, so that's all that matters.
PG-13 plus is what we'll call
PG 13,000.
An R negative
needs
rating.
A disclaimer. Offends easily offended people. So
Anyways,
basically, yep. So David killed Goliath. He wanted to come in and be a bully. And little David, because God gave him the courage and the skill, which that's super, super important. He had God, but he also had skill. And he basically just kicked his ass. So great.
Pretty much, yeah. Little Davy boy put him right on his butt.
Yep. So violence will always be necessary, and not every instance obviously calls for violence. You have people that have anger issues that can't control their rage.
Right here is where I need to interject something, okay? Because I'm so excited about this. I literally have a rule about this at work, okay?
I know what you're going to say.
At work, on my crew.
I know what you're going to say.
Can I say rules. I have 4 rules.
Can I say one of the rules?
Yes, you can.
The right amount of violence will fix anything.
That's right. Yes. The right amount of violence will solve any problem. Okay? Just think about it. If you disagree with that, just think about it for a little bit and ponder that. You'll see that I'm right.
The right amount of violence. What if it's like negative violence? So
There's no such thing as negative violence.
You have to softly approach something, a soft approach. Like what if
the right amount of, I'm
like
not saying
you gently kill someone, like you're just like, all right, I'm going to slit your throat with a razor knife, and you're not going to feel it because it's so sharp, and we'll just give you some medication. You just pass us
the right amount of violence.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah. I'm like violence. You don't have to use violence for every situation, but the right amount of violence
will fix any situation.
Exactly. You don't have to use it, but it's always there.
Everyone at home is going to be pondering, like, wait,
they're going to be like, man, he's right.
They're going to go to Chick-fil-A, and they're going to give
the right amount of violence.
They're going to order. No, they're going to order. Their order's going to come out wrong, and they're going to throw it out the window like flying Chick-fil-A sandwich.
First time chickens fly.
And then they're going to start praying over it. Sorry, sir. And you get 2 Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Let's keep going.
All right. So violence is something that actually even the Lord Jesus Christ himself has commanded his people in the Bible to go and attack certain nations that are either holding land over his chosen people's heads or trying to control them or enslave them in some certain type of way. Or actually, God has also used it to punish his enemies, who are really the enemies of the Israelites, his chosen people. So even God himself, in certain situations, condones violence. Imagine that. And it's really, if you zoom all the way out, it's just he's condoning it because of good and evil. So he will violently destroy evil. The Lord himself. So if you guys want to be on the other end of that screen and be pissed off, well, it's a new day and age, and there's other ways to control this.
Violence is never the answer.
Shut up, Karen.
I'm not God. Ask God, not me.
Take it up with the man. We just do his work here on earth.
Exactly. Yes, we're prophets, the prophet Joseph and Jonathan. All right, so I'm going to read you guys a scripture verse, if you don't believe me, about what Jesus says you ought to do. Luke 22:36. Jesus says, "But now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one."
Get ready to rumble.
Do you have a cloak or do you have a sword?
I have both.
I have a couple swords. I'm good. So, what do you think that Jesus told the Israelites before they would charge into battle, or when, they weren't sure if they should take the violent approach? I mean, what do you think, what kind of reassurance that he would have to give them to let them know that the order was of him and that they were doing the right thing by acting out in violence?
Well, there's a verse that says, "Hear, O Israel, today you are going into battle against your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted or afraid. Do not be terrified or give way to panic before them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to give you victory." So God tells us right there, straight up, these dudes are heading into battle. They're about to lay the smackdown on some bad guys. And God's like, hey, don't be afraid. Don't give way to panic. I'm going to go before you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to give you the victory.
Right, and he's done that on several occasions too. I mean, there's several, don't believe me, look it up for yourself, several battles, famous battles recorded all throughout the Bible.
And you know what? Even in recent times too, with
That's true.
The reconstituting of the nation of Israel, like the Yom Kippur War, the 7 Days War, all these other things, even stuff that's going on right now, where the Lord literally, it's pretty
fights
obvious,
for them.
Fights for Israel. They're literally probably one of the smallest nations on earth.
Yep.
But nobody can overcome them.
Surrounded by its enemies. That's actually pretty cool. Sometimes that gives me cold chills thinking about.
That's so hardcore, because they're this tiny little nation right in the midst of all these big, nasty,
the
whatever.
Russians and everyone else,
and nobody,
China.
They're pretty much sitting there being like, you can't kill us.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So even in the Bible, when they were commanded to march around the walls of Jericho and destroy the city and everything in it, God condones violence under the right circumstances. I'm telling you, violence is necessary. He uses it to really punish the perpetrators of his people. Sometimes he'll even use violence to get the attention of his people. Sometimes he uses violence and catastrophic events to get the attention of us when other people are walking astray or not doing as they should. I mean, he will allow something.
Why do you think that is?
Because that's the only way to truly get someone's attention.
Yes, because violence is a universal language. You cannot misinterpret or misunderstand violence. And
sorry, I did not mean to run you through.
Right, exactly. Because if somebody's being violent towards you, you're not going to mistake that for something else.
Correct.
Okay, it's one thing and one thing only. Okay.
Yep.
And a lot of times, we're talking about God and being, condoning violence and stuff. A lot of times, it took a lot leading up to that point where God was dealing with people and nations, trying to get them to turn from their their sinful ways, trying to get their attention in other nonviolent ways, and that's the last resort.
Nobody listened.
Ignored everything up to that point. So God's like, okay, I'm going to do something you're not going to be able to ignore.
Yep. Boom. Men are becoming women, cutting off their dicks. All right. So, what are, we're talking about Bible terms, obviously, in the beginning of this, and famous stories that a lot of people in America especially will know. Obviously, David and Goliath is one of the biggest ones. Not everyone knows the story of Jericho and everything else, and how God worked in the Old Testament when he was delivering the Israelites, or dealing and judging them as well as their enemies.
Yep.
So, moving on, what are some examples that are more modern that we can apply to this and prove our point pretty much that, violence is needed in order to not only get the kind of life and freedom that you want, but also to preserve it? Because once you climb to the top of the mountain, you're not the only one that's, climbing that ladder or that mountain. Once you're up at the top, you have to fight just as hard, or not harder, to maintain that peak.
That's right. So I would say a war for independence.
War for independence is perfect. So the key issue with that, basically, taxation was the number one thing.
We were getting unfairly taxed by the British, and the king, King George at the time, was really meddling in our affairs, and we were like, you know what, screw you, buddy. We don't need you to be over here. We can govern and control ourselves, and we're not going to pay your stupid 3% tax on tea.
I don't even really drink tea, but I'm not paying no tea tax on anything. So
it's pretty basically pathetic,
they
because
wanted
now everybody pays way more in taxes.
We pay taxes on taxes, basically, yeah. So they basically said, piss on you guys, we're not going to do it. You're wanting us to pay taxes. You're all the way on the other side of the ocean running whatever political mumbo-jumbo that you want, while we're over here with no say, living our own lives, and yet y'all are wanting to basically benefit. They were trying to basically formally enslave them from the other side of the ocean. This was before cell phones, before the internet. The only thing I think is just the audacity. Where did they get their audacity with their big British noses? You're going to pay all tax.
Well, here's the thing, right? At this point,
Musket says no.
In time, Britain had a massive empire. Like there's an old saying, the sun never set on the British Empire. So they were, involved in India. They were here in the Americas. They were, all over the place. So everybody else was bowing down. They thought we were going to do the same thing.
And wrong they were. But,
yeah.
If you think about it for a second, I mean, the most important factor in the decision to not bow down was the fact that you take your regular farmers and artisans and laborers who just wanted a normal life, just like people today. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So people still wake up, they go to work, they raise their kids, their wife is at home, they have their dog, they want to go to church on Sunday and have a nice dinner, live a normal, comfortable, happy life, just like everybody else on the other side of this screen. And guess what? They sacrificed because they gave a damn about the future and about their kids' future. And more importantly, they were not afraid to call evil, evil, and wrong, wrong, and corrupt, corrupt.
That's right. And unfortunately, nowadays, everybody's afraid to do that. Nobody has the balls to rock the boat. Well, not nobody, because we definitely do. Like, I love
not enough people are willing to die.
Back then, people were a different breed. People weren't much harder working. They were much more in tune with what was going on around them. They didn't have all the distractions like sports and
OnlyFans, models,
crazy stupidness that goes on today. Right? Their food was a whole lot better. They had traditional values. They cared about their families. They cared about their communities.
Yep.
They had a scope of what the future would hold, and they cared about that.
Well, because they had, and I mean, I have to be careful how I word this, they had pride. Not the modern term of pride with a rainbow flag sucking some dude's dick by another dude. No, pride in the sense that they came on to this land and made it their own. They traveled halfway across the world, and they grew that land and the agriculture and their own little economy. They built a nation, basically, in its infancy, and they had a huge amount of pride, and they weren't going to just let some stupid British guy come over and tell them what to do. And I don't blame them. They had the means to fight back. And you know what's funny? They didn't even have social media. They didn't have all this modern-day form of communication. And if they did, can you imagine how easy it would have been to get everybody together and everybody on the same page quicker so that they could fight and go into war and have a much better game plan? So they orchestrated this with normal workers, normal laborers, the average family. Even the women would fight with their husbands. They would work as nurses. They would provide ammunition to the troops and aid in their own way that they're able to, not necessarily in battle. Although there is a story of a girl who disguised herself as a man that fought in the war as a soldier.
Was that the one that manned the cannon when her husband got killed? Because there's a story about that too. I don't think we might be talking about different
that
things.
could be taken a few different ways.
Like she, there was this really cool story that I read. This was a long time ago, but I forget the woman's name. But her husband was in artillery, and they were fighting, in one of the battles, and he went down during the battle. So she runs forward and mans his place on the gun with the rest of the crew, and they're just freaking shelling the heck out of the British.
You imagine a modern day, like,
I broke a nail. I have a headache. I drank too much Starbucks, not enough water.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the.
There are some
the
women that
disposition
are
of a lot of
actually
women.
badass enough that they would do that nowadays. Most of them are not from the United States, by the way. A lot of them are from Middle Eastern towns and cities that have to.
And you know
they
what?
have no choice. They have to.
You know what the difference is? Those people over there in the Middle East, they still have traditional family values, and that's what makes them strong and able to do that.
Correct.
And that's why they've tried so hard here in the West to destroy that, because they know that's the core, that's the foundation that everything else is built on. So now that they've crumbled that, guess what?
Exactly. So, back to what you said about the sun never sets on the British Army.
British Empire.
The British Empire. So the Americans, they didn't have a navy or an army. They didn't have, a professional navy. Like the greatest navy in the world is what the British Army had at that time. So can you imagine? I mean, the British literally thought, and if you look at it in just, from on paper, the colonists are screwed. But they cared so much, and they were basically just, so patriotic about their own nation that they didn't care what the odds were. They would rather die than be slaves and be forced to do something that they did not agree with. That is the most patriotic thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, and you know what? This always inevitably comes up whenever you talk about this. Like, we'll cross a frozen river on Christmas Eve to kill you in your bed if you come and try to enslave us. Like, we'll do the most psycho thing to kill somebody.
That's Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
That's awesome. I mean, I just get cold chills talking about it.
Like, this stuff should be talked about and shared a whole lot more often, especially in today's day and age, because it stirs something inside of every true red-blooded American.
True patriotic spirit, man.
It reminds you where you come from and what those people
heritage.
Endured, and like it makes you want to go and do the same thing to preserve it and make sure it wasn't wasted.
Yeah. Exactly. So anyone that has allowed our freedom to be slowly restricted like a python around someone's neck really has allowed all those brave individuals that sacrificed everything that you're too scared to sacrifice, you've allowed them to die in vain. They crossed a frozen river and killed the British in vain. I mean, what was that? The bloodiest battle ever. Bunker Hill. The bloodiest battle ever. All those people died in vain. Oh, the football game's on. I want to be entertained. I've been working so hard. And me and Emily aren't really doing so good because she wants guy friends and she doesn't want me to control her. Died in vain. It's your fault. So, obviously, they fear. What's the one thing that they fear? And what have they done? Why have they subtly enslaved us to prevent such an event happening again? What did they do?
Well, the powers that be, the people who control the world, the elites, there's an agenda that they're following, and in order for, and biblically speaking too, this is all lining up with biblical prophecy. In order for
Oh, the Bible's outdated. It's just a book
well,
written by man.
that's a whole.
It's
other,
lost its
that's a whole
meaning
other
through
episode.
numerous measures of
But
interpretation.
that's why they're trying to do what they're doing now, because they're trying to follow through with the plans that they have, and they're trying to destroy America.
Right. And if we don't stand up and do something, they might succeed. So they fear unity. They fear everybody getting together, the masses rising up to the top and saying, no, we're prepared to be violent. We're prepared to die and sacrifice and fight and shed blood to preserve our freedom that you're trying to take from us. And
you know what?
unfortunately, nobody wants to sacrifice.
It's like they're programming people to be
Sheep.
well, they're opposed to violence. They're programming people to be opposed
To think violence is bad.
They should. They're exactly.
Yeah.
Like so many people now. Like even when the situation calls for violence, they back away from it. I noticed that, and I'm standing out here like, "Let's go!" I look like a freaking psycho because I'm ready to.
But that's the
Put smack
mentality
down on
that
this.
you have to have. You imagine, I'm sure that when they were at the Battle of Bunker Hill, they weren't calm. Like, well, maybe we shouldn't run them through. Let me stop and think about it. Hold on, everybody, safe space. You go to your side.
use your words.
Yeah, all right, before we do this, they got a loudspeaker.
I'm gonna use my words.
Die. What are your safe words? Just so we don't kill each other too inhumanely. British, what do you guys want? Okay, all right. What are blue coats?
Oh man.
My safe words are, well, I was gonna say F and U, but this is PG. This is PG. F U, run them through. Hey, Topher, if you're watching this, we need a rap song that has the chords F U, run them through.
Yeah, Topher, get some.
10 through, run them through with that nice 808 beat.
We gotta
USA, you can't beat.
we got to get our boy Topher on this.
Anyways, so they fear everybody waking up. Normal, back then it was farmers, artisans, laborers, whatever. Normal Walmart, factory, gas station, whatever. Sell your cloak and buy an AR-15. That's a modern day sword.
Sell your Xbox and buy a rifle.
Correct.
Basically
And
is
learn
what
how to
that
use it and get plenty of bullets and go to the gym and exercise and make lots of money.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, if you fear unity, the unity of a large mass of people resisting.
You're going to do all kinds of stuff to fracture that
Exactly.
and divide them.
So what would you say are the three main things that you would attack if you wanted to keep people fighting amongst themselves and too busy to realize what was going on?
I would make the races go at each other. I would make
Racism.
I would pit the wealthy and the not so wealthy against each other, make them think that each other was the problem.
Financial strain.
And I would break apart the family.
Relationship
Put men
issues.
versus women, or women versus men and stuff like that.
Make men think they were women.
Yeah. And when women, I would make women think that they should compete against men and that they should be able to do everything that men could do when I knew that they couldn't.
Correct. So, some other things, those are the main three, but some other things that come to mind is you want to keep the people weak, obviously. So feed them junk food, poison food. If you've ever looked at the label from a product, the same product, from somewhere like the UK versus somewhere like the United States, there's probably like 20 more ingredients in the processed food in America versus
Sometimes
the processed
more.
food in the UK. And the reason that they're doing that is because it's poison and it's going to kill you and give you cancer, and they're trying to control the population, because if the population gets too big, it is harder to control. That's what they want.
And you know what I notice is really freaking sad? In today's world, like our young men here in the United States, there are very few fit people.
Yes.
A lot of the men that I'm seeing now are either fat or they're super skinny. Their arms and legs are like twigs. Like they're not going to be able to fight.
Well, all they
gonna
need
do?
is their thumbs.
Space, my safe space. I'm gonna text my.
What are those? See, I don't even know what this stuff is. What are those people? Therapists.
Yeah.
Well, my therapist said I shouldn't go to work because it's a non-friendly environment, and I won't do very. I'll be judged because I'm big boned.
Anyways,
All right,
continue on.
so poison food, everybody's fat, no one has any testosterone, and everyone's high on estrogen. Ooh.
Yep.
All right, the next one that comes to mind is cheap entertainment. If I wanted to destroy someone's unity and prevent them from becoming a powerhouse of the masses,
Distraction.
I would distract them. I would work them to death. I would make them hate each other. I would make their relationship and any kind of at-home stability shaky. I would
Take
make
that
them
right
extremely uncomfortable.
You mean, no, too comfortable. You'd get them
Yes.
super comfortable.
I would make them very comfortable, feed them lots of sugar and salt, shitty food, and just make it to where it's like a fat, lazy cow in a field. What do they do with the fat, lazy cows that they fatten?
slaughter it. That nice, easy life that cow has doesn't end up so easy.
For
in
a
the very end.
cause. Yep. Give them an easy life. Drown out the masculinity. That's like you have a bunch of fat cows, right? And you have a bull. Well, say that bull is full of testosterone, and he's caught running around causing a big stir amongst the other cows in the field. They're probably going to move him out of that field. We can't have that. He's gonna trigger the other ones to start moving too much. It's gonna make the meat too tough and not tender. So they're trying to nix that. Yep, they're trying to remove all the strong bulls that may be too influential, that doesn't go along with their agenda. Another big one is also fear tactics. So let's just say, for example, you have and I know this is almost going to be reverse, but bear with me. You have a big herd of cattle or sheep, whatever. Let's say you don't have a fence, but let's say that you use, I know wolves eat sheep, but just for the analogy, bear with me. Let's say you have a bunch of wolves circling around the perimeter where you don't want the sheep to escape from, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say if they were to, obviously they would escape death and they wouldn't be turned into a nice juicy 40-ounce T-bone steak. So you're just going to use wolves every once in a while around that perimeter to go, I better not go over there, I'm going to be eaten. So they're going to stay exactly where you want them to because they're scared.
Fear is a very effective weapon for someone someone who knows how to use fear. It can be the difference between winning and losing a battle.
Yep, life and death. Exactly. So it's either stay with the herd of the cattle and be eaten, or face the wolves, risk dying. You're going to die anyways. I would rather try to escape and not die in vain.
I would rather die on my own terms than stay in the pasture and have everything dictated to me and have them decide when I die.
Exactly.
I will take dangerous freedom any day over peaceful slavery because peace is great. I love living in peace.
You can't have peace without war.
But if I have to choose between a peaceful existence as a slave or a dangerous one as a free man, I'm going to be a free man all day long.
Exactly. And you imagine one brave cow or bull runs out where the wolves are. He's seen them. He's been afraid before, but he knows that,
he's taking a hold of his balls. He needs to give them wolves a horn if they come and mess with him.
Exactly. And if he was to die, it may inspire the other cows, the younger cows. Oh, I saw Grandpa
Bull.
Grandpa Graham charge the wolves. I know that if I try to do that, I may die, but I may live. But what if I can get all the other cattle on the same page that all the wolves can't kill us?
No. Nope.
There you go. Escaped, free, no T-bone 40-ounce steak. That sounds good.
Do love me a good steak.
So, an example of one of the top 3 tactics that they try to do to keep us from being extremely unified is racism. So, we're going to give an example of how racism didn't affect the people in the Revolutionary War. So, During the American Revolution, African American men, both enslaved and free, fought in the Continental Army. Black soldiers served in mostly integrated units at this time. The 1st Rhode Island Regiment is the most famous regiment that included African Americans during the American Revolution. So, who's someone famous that you can recall that may have bought their freedom and still chose to fight against the British?
There's this hardcore dude named Salem Poor.
Salem Poor. He, a man of very rich values.
That's right. So, Salem Poor is best remembered today for his actions during the Battle of Bunker Hill on June 17th, 1775. He was credited with mortally wounding British Lieutenant Colonel James Abercrombie, I think it was.
Yep.
As he jumped onto the redoubt, he yelled, "Surrender, you rebels!"
Surrender, you rebels! As he shot him.
So he was this former slave was now fighting the most powerful army on earth, and he jumps up onto the redoubt and calling them rebels.
Rebel!
Die, rebel
You
scum!
imagine you're some lieutenant. You have a pretty wig.
You're a lieutenant
Beautiful
colonel, you're
red
all
colors.
trimmed and primed, and this ex-slave just
You imagine
Just-
he must have been.
just
He was
put
he was
you
a
out of your
slave
misery.
born into slavery. He must have been like just vascular and ripped out of his
that
mind.
dude was like, dude.
He was probably like 6'3", 6'4", and I would have loved to have been there. Salem, I would have loved to help Salem. I would have I'm not even helped kill the guy. I would have just held him down and like, all right, Salem, take out all your frustration. So yeah, that's one example that we know of. There's probably
There's a
hundreds
whole
more
bunch.
that we don't know
Whole
of.
bunch.
So a slave that was born into slavery bought his freedom and chose to fight for that country against the British. That's awesome.
Because even he knew that they were dirtbags and what they were trying to do was wrong.
Exactly. Surrender, you rebel. Hey, we're going to make a T-shirt that says that.
Dude, we should.
All right, so nowadays, like we said earlier, one of the 3 major sins of trying to dismantle our unity. So nowadays, one of the things that they try to use as a ploy against us is sexism. Oh, man against woman, blah, 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 blah. The ultimate power couple, power dynamic, they're trying to destroy it because when it is done in the correct way and it's in traditional values and everyone's in their own role, it is a powerhouse, and they don't want that. So I'm going to read this from some research I did. So a great many women took part in the Revolutionary War. The 2 main reasons women usually follow their husbands into the army was the occupation and or destruction of their home areas by the British. Or they would simply not be able to provide for themselves and their families while their husband was gone. You imagine, honey, I'm going to work. I'll be back. Don't cheat on me while I'm gone. Fast forward, a couple hundred years, whatever, and then, honey, we're going to battle. It's like, all right, babe, let me get the kids and the musket balls.
It was a family affair.
I'll melt down my ring, our token of love, so we can destroy what we have, or preserve what we have that they're trying to destroy. That is true love.
Using a ring to...
Kill the enemy.
That's the ultimate sign of affection right there.
That is beautiful.
I'm going to shed somebody's blood with this baby. Oh, that's so sexy.
So women performed the crucial tasks in the American Revolution, organizing fundraising drives, things women are good at, they stuck to. That is why they were successful. So they would organize fundraising drives, supply the troops, they would work in the military camps and tend to the wounded soldiers, all things that women are good at. Awesome. They didn't...
There's something,
I have a musket.
There's something to be said for maintaining your proper role.
Correct. All right. There's 2 women that I want to mention here. I can't give a shout out to them necessarily because they're not here anymore. But
We could still shout them out anyway.
one of the most famous of these women that helped in the Revolutionary War was a woman named Deborah Sampson. She was originally from Massachusetts. This is the one that disguised herself as a man in order to fight against the Continental Army. That's cool as shit because nowadays...
She didn't fight against the Continental Army.
No, with them.
You said against them.
I got too excited because I had the thought, this is the difference between slavery and freedom, in between bravery and modern day bravery. Modern day bravery.
There is no such thing as modern day.
No, listen. That's what they're trying to push on us. You're brave if you're a woman and you want to get a sex change and become a man.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Oh, you're
I
so
see where you're going.
brave. Meanwhile, Deborah, old Debbie, little Debbie,
Little Debbie was out here slaying bodies.
little Debbie pretended to have a Twinkie between her legs so that she could go destroy the British Army. How cool is that? That's true bravery. That is the only time it's acceptable to pretend that you are a man. That is awesome.
Roger that.
Little Debbie.
About it. Get some.
Get some, Little Debbie. All right. The next one, Abigail Adams. That's such an American last name.
I know, right?
She is apparently a forgotten female hero of the Revolutionary War. She's a patriot from the earliest days of the Revolutionary War. Abigail supplied the troops stationed near her Boston Harbor home with ammunition.
And back in the day, with all that going on, that was like obviously that would be always a dangerous thing to do.
Correct.
You know, because you got all these British running around searching for guns, trying to, confiscate things. Battle of Lexington, Concord happens, and all that stuff.
Yep.
And she's still supplying these American dudes out of her home with ammunition. She was like, the British could show up, but you know what? Screw them. Here, take this. Go shoot them.
And, I mean, Boston Harbor. She probably had a nice home.
Yeah.
But
she had a lot to lose. I
she-
imagine she had a lot to lose
Thank
from
you.
doing that.
She had a lot to lose. Her home, her beautiful home up there on the bay. She was willing to risk her comfort to fight the greater cause. That is awesome. She wasn't at home showing off her butthole on the internet for $7.99, sacrificing her dignity,
Pathetic.
sacrificing her future and the possibility of her kids becoming bullied. She sacrificed her
well-being.
her well-being. Yes. Yep. Her livelihood, her own home, she risked. And she wouldn't even have lost it. She was just willing to say, no, I'm not going to pay the tax either. I'm going to have my tea and drink it and not pay tax.
I love it.
Tea.
I'm going to have my tea and not pay tax. It's true.
Yep. So, I think, in modern terms, that obviously they're still trying to squash our freedom, and it's gone way further than it should ever have been allowed to.
Yep.
What do you think is something very recent that might have happened that is and was a huge test and possibly a success to gauge the sheeple in America?
Oh, so it was, most people have come to the realization that the whole teen thing was a huge psyop. It was exactly what all the conspiracy theorists said it was, okay? There was no, okay?
Pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, some people got sick, but if it were actually a pandemic, like, there would have been people in the hospital, like, you would see it, you know what I mean? Like, how many people did you know during the pandemic that were sick and dying?
I've heard of
you've heard
just
of
a handful.
Right, and I've only heard of a handful. We didn't see it. What they've been doing, the way they've been manipulating things, they get it programmed into people's heads that they should believe what they see on the media and deny the evidence that their eyes show them.
Correct.
So there was this whole huge scam, right? The whole thing wasn't about the virus at all. It was about making people get the vaccine.
Control.
They wanted control. They wanted to see if they could scare people, fear, into getting this vaccine. And
Correct.
it was everybody denied the evidence that their eyes told them, because if you would stop for a second and look, there was no.
Right? I didn't get sick. I was sick, but it was no more than the flu.
Yeah, the hospitals were not overcrowded. There weren't thousands upon thousands of extra people dying from this. All right, it was just all in your heads, and everybody paid attention to the social media. And that's what it was.
Said I have to stay
it was
in.
a classic example of fear at work, and everybody fell for it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people.
The majority.
It was a really polarizing event where people who could do critical thinking stopped and took a step back and saw what was happening and tried to tell everybody else who were acting like sheep and just charging towards this slaughterhouse, so to speak. And we were like, we were all like, hey, you guys need to chill and not do this. But everybody got scared they're going to lose their jobs. This was going to happen. That was going to happen. So everybody rushed and got this vaccine that, essentially
Gives you blood clots and changes your DNA.
exactly. Thank you.
I know of a nurse that works at a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's a big major city. Everyone knows. She put in for religious exemption because she did not want that pushed on her. And so she was waiting, and they hadn't reviewed it yet. She kept asking. It was still under review. So the deadline came. So she got it because she has kids to support and her home, her livelihood, her well-being. So she ended up getting it. Within 24 hours of receiving the vaccine, she was getting blood clots and had to go to the ER because she was going to lose her life because she became ill. She was starting to get multiple blood clots. So it's safe to say that the vaccine caused the blood clots. And guess what? Like 2 or 3 days later, they updated her portfolio. Oh, you are eligible for the religious exemption, so you don't have to get the vaccine. That was done on purpose.
Yep,
Clearly
100%.
done on purpose.
So that right there shows that it was like what we said before in one of the previous episodes about pushing through when life pushes back against you. You have to hold your ground.
Yep.
And you got to be firm in what you believe, no matter what the cost. I've seen so many people that, disagreed with it, but they were afraid for one reason or another, and they decided to go and get it. And there's actually some things that I looked up that prove getting that changes DNA, and they no longer consider anybody who got a human being because it changes
Nanobots.
It changes their DNA structure. So
Yep.
if you are no longer considered a human being, you no longer have human rights, you no longer have all these things, and they can just flip the switch with those nanobots that were in the vaccine, and Lord knows what's going to happen because there's a very distinct occurrence now is that really healthy people all of a sudden just keel over and die.
Heart issues.
The one common denominator is that they all took the and you know what? The vaccinated people aren't dying, and the vaccinated people are.
Coincidence? Maybe.
Nah.
That's interesting. That's like you take the flock, right? Say the flock is getting too big and they're all spread out. They're a little bit further away from the slaughterhouse than you would like them to be because now you have to work harder to get them all over there to kill them so you can control the flock, right? So all you got to do, take a wolf, bring a wolf around a little bit closer. Oh my God, a wolf! The whole flock.
They all come stampeding back.
Because they're scared of the wolf. They're going to run closer to the slaughterhouse. Oh, don't go over there. There's a wolf. We're all afraid. We don't want to die. Let's run towards safety. And when you sacrifice your safety, you lose your freedom.
There's one thing that I've never quite understood. I mean, maybe I'm not wired right, but why do people shy so far away from death?
Well, I mean, it's human nature.
Maybe I'm just not wired right.
You're weird.
When my time comes, I'm not going to cry and beg for more time or whatever. Like, I've lived my life and, had a good life. Whenever my time comes, I'm ready.
That is weird.
I'm not going to be afraid of somebody trying to kill me. Come at me.
I think you just answered your own question. You said you're not afraid of someone coming after you because you possess the ability to fight back, whereas these other people don't, so they know they're probably going to die. With you, you have a higher chance of survival and killing the enemy before they kill you. That's the difference. So you're not.
I'm willing to use violence.
You're not scared. I wouldn't say it's that you don't fear dying because I think everyone does to a certain degree, but. You know that you have the ability and the skill set to survive, and you're not going to allow somebody because your testosterone is so high that you can't possibly
spike through the roof.
You can't possibly allow someone to come take your life. So, you imagine take all the people, take Salem Poor, Abigail Adams, all these people. Bring them to modern day America. They would probably be so disgusted with the way things are.
They're probably turning in their graves right now.
Yeah. So, if all these people that sacrificed all their modern, to them at the time, luxuries and freedoms and so on, their home on the bay in Boston, everything, their farm, their family, all this stuff, there's no reason why we can't resist too. So it is a different era. So now people have jobs. They don't all work on the farm. They don't all, source their own food and grow it and basically live self-sufficiently. So there is a form of reliance on other things that can easily be taken out. But we can all fight back in one form or another. So what's the first thing that we ought to do?
I think it's good to have a really good fund base.
Financial. One of the
Financial
things that
base.
they're trying to make it very, very hard with tax, all the tax. So we can't have the funds to buy guns and destroy the modern British. Correct. So we need to work hard. So we have to work smarter, obviously. We have to focus on being healthy and fit. That's going to help everyone do their jobs a whole lot better. And it starts with the home next. So it starts with you. You must first be a high-functioning individual who does great work, skilled work. Bring in more money. You need money.
You should always strive for excellence at whatever it is that you do.
Every single thing.
Doesn't matter if you work at a grocery store, if you're a freaking brain surgeon, and anything in between. You should always strive to be the absolute best at whatever it is that you do.
Be the best McDonald's burger flipper and buy a
right.
sword. Sell
know
your
what?
McDouble and buy a sword.
Because cream always rises to the top.
Correct.
Like you might, be just flipping burgers at McDonald's, but you know what? If you flip those burgers like you're flipping them for the Lord, and you apply yourself, and you're the absolute best burger flipper, eventually they're going to move you up the ladder a little bit, and then maybe one day you'll own one of the McDonald's franchises. Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
How about a McDouble? Yep, so it starts with you. You need to work very hard so that you can afford to have the funds necessary and get the guns and the ammo you need. You need to know how to use them, and you need food and water, basic things to survive. If you can survive, you can fight back.
And you know what? A lot of people overlook medical skills. Medical skills are going to be a whole lot more beneficial than gunfighting skills. So learn how to do simple things like suture, stop bleeding, like things like that. Things that keep you alive. Because if something were to happen, chances are at some point you will be injured, and you need to know how to handle yourself and somebody else if that happens.
Yeah. So not everybody all the heroes that we mentioned in this episode had a gun. Abigail Adams, I think
she had ammo.
She had ammo.
She just supplied people with ammo.
Old double AA Anonymous. I'm not giving them ammo.
What ammo?
What ammo? No, Abigail was the one that pretended to have the Twinkie between her legs.
No, that was Deborah.
One of them gave ammo.
And one of them had the Twinkie.
One of them had Little
Pretended
Debbie.
to have a Twinkie.
Little Debbie had a Twinkie between her legs so she could fight the British. The other one didn't know what was going on, didn't have a clue. She was watching the sunrise on the bay, and she had a whole bunch of musket ammunition. All right. So you can fight back in that way. You can be beneficial in that way. But the point is you have to be trying your very best so you can have the highest chance possible to survive, and not only survive yourself, but to also help those around you in fighting for the greater good. So you need to be around like-minded people.
That's what I was about to say. Meet like-minded people, like your neighbors. That right there is going to either be your greatest detriment or your greatest asset. Because if you can build these good, solid relationships with like 2 or 3 or 4, 5 people around you, because they're going to want to survive too. Nobody
wants to die and be a
no
slave.
normal people want to die. Okay,
besides you,
I'm not normal.
You did say normal.
Yeah, and I'm not normal.
I know.
Good.
I still love you.
Okay. That makes me happy. All right, keep going. Continue.
All right. So basically, if you don't have the neighbors, because they might be weirdos, there's a very strong possibility your neighbors are weird and gay. All right? That's fine. But you have social media. Probably.
Find
And there's
people who aren't
lots
weird
of
and gay.
groups, lots of groups of like-minded people. Very easy to meet these people and to network. And it doesn't have to be coming together with guns and blah, 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 blah. Start small. Find someone to go to the gym with and get healthier.
Find somebody to grow a garden with.
Correct.
Use the technology at your fingertips for your advantage and don't consume content.
Correct. Thank you. Yes. Perfect. So, you imagine you take one little town, a small town somewhere, anywhere where anyone lives, doesn't matter. And a group of people have their own food source, a group of people are very fit, a group of people own guns, and a group of people know how to do medical supplies, and so on, so on, so on. People have food, and they could survive, right? Now, imagine every town has a couple of those groups. Now imagine every town that has those groups gets together for that entire state. Imagine that each entire state gets together with all their little groups. You're going to have a very massive group, an army of modern-day patriots. Correct. So, what's stopping you from doing that?
They're comfortable.
They're scared. They're afraid of the wolves, so they're going to run closer to the slaughterhouse.
Comfort and fear. Two biggest limiting factors.
I'm scared. You're gonna just sit around and be afraid of the wolves and become fat, and they're gonna make a big, fat, juicy 40-ounce T-bone steak out of you and your kids. Your kids are gonna be like Wagyu. Not little Timmy. He's really struggling right now. He's getting bullied at school.
Teach him to fight back.
His ADD medication isn't working, so we have an appointment with his woke therapist to see if maybe he wants to identify as a furry, because that's the only thing that makes him feel special. You do know what furries are, right?
Yeah.
My balls.
No. Oh my God. I'm done with you.
So anyways, there you have it. Classic history lesson.
In violence.
What's everyone going to do about it? Violence is the only thing that's real. Laws, can't see them. They must not be real. Laws can't kill you.
You know, if a lot of people would stop and really do some critical thinking, a lot of things in life are all in our heads. Most things in life
Nothing's
are
real.
Most things are in your head. Most things don't exist. We've created all these things and these systems and these, constructs and whatever. They're all up here.
Honestly, life, like you can't see Wi-Fi, but everyone depends on Wi-Fi. You can't see air. Everybody needs air. Oh, well, I don't believe in God because I can't see him. I don't see God.
There's plenty of evidence for him. There's more evidence for him than there is for... Well, actually, there's no evidence that God doesn't exist because all the evidence is that he does exist.
Correct. So, you need to get together with a group of like-minded people. And hopefully you guys have learned something today on another beautiful episode of the Sigma Swag podcast.
That's right. You guys, I guess we're pretty much done, huh?
In the end, didn't even matter.
You guys stay dangerous. Do not let fear control you. Do not let comfort sway you and hold you back from taking action when you know that you should.
And charge the wolves.
Charge the wolves.
It's safer to run from the slaughterhouse than it is to be afraid of the wolves. But if you stick together in a pack, you can beat them.
That's right.
You can escape.
Unity, very important.
All right, you want to go turn this off and sword fight?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
You guys take care.